Ritter Communications presents the NEA Varsity Podcast, brought to you by Tubetown and NEA Sports. Here are your hosts, Marcus Carlton and Ryan Fletcher.
Hey, everybody. Marcus Carlton, Ryan Fletcher back here with you for episode 14 of the NEA Varsity Podcast. Ryan, welcome back in after a little hiatus, man.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, Marcus, but glad to be back.
We had holiday. I had some sickness run through my family, and my voice sounded awful. And not that it sounds real good anyway, but it doesn't need any help sounding bad. So decided we would take a little break, try to get everybody healthy and schedules to settle down a little bit. And, in the process, looks like this will be our last football show of the year, Ryan.
Yeah, it's flown by pretty fast. It flies by faster when you've got the opportunity to cover as many good ball games especially as you guys have had with following Westside. So, but yeah, it's definitely basketball season as we are in the almost the middle of the month of December.
No doubt. Basketball is up and running, and we're getting a little later start than usual because this is the first time we did playoffs, but that's kind of a good problem to have. So Westside had a historical season for them. Got to tip your hat to those guys on all the different records they set this year. And then I saw just a few minutes ago before we sat down to record that Coach Engel is a finalist for the Hooten's 4A Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I saw that this morning. Congratulations to him. Very much deserved. And, I look at that as it's not just what he's done this year, but what he's done over the last several years to build this program truly from the bottom up.
No doubt about it. And it's a well-deserved honor. And best of luck to Coach Engel. We hope he can maybe pull home another trophy for Westside this year. As their season came to an end against, I still call it Joe T. Robinson, but now I guess the official name is Pulaski Robinson in the quarterfinals. 20-7 was the final score of the game. And, Ryan, Robinson come out and basically punched Westside in the mouth. First play from scrimmage, goes for a touchdown, 65, 70-yard touchdown run. And, the biggest thing I noticed in this game was the size difference in some of the players. You had several players for Robinson that were above 6 feet and between 280 and 300 pounds on the offensive and defensive lines. And when you get that much size differential, it's a tall mountain to climb.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And we talked about it, and that they are a very talented team, and they jumped out pretty early.
Yeah.
That was, I'm sure, key for them and worked against Westside. But, it very talented team is all I'll say on
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, they're in the state finals now. So it's, the state finals in the 4A division comes down to them and Shiloh Christian. The game that'll be this Friday or Saturday 1. Don't remember offhand without having to look, but it's coming up this weekend. And I think that's the matchup that a lot of people had pegged when the brackets came out and you saw that those two were on opposite sides. That's, I think that's what everybody had kind of predicted, at least most people anyway, as being your 4A final. And I think it'll be a good matchup. It'll be interesting to see, if Robinson can slow down the Shiloh offense, which, Shiloh is back to being what they are expected to be, I guess is the way to put it. They went through a little bit of a rough patch, but Jeff Conaway has really got that program back up to its standards of where they want to be. And, they will have their hands full, though, with Robinson, I think. This Robinson team is very athletic. As I've pointed out already, their size is just enormous. I remember they had one kid on the offensive line that was on the sheet we had. He was listed at 6'5", 305, and he's a sophomore. So, right. I mean, he may not be done growing yet, for all we know. But it was, Westside has nothing at all to hang their head about with everything they accomplished this year. And, I mean, if you want to get in deep dive into the stats and break down this game with Robinson, they actually outscored Robinson in the second half 7-6. And so if you can't win the game and you're searching for that silver lining to look for, I mean, you can't end on that high note there.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. Silver lining, though, is just the season in general of being conference champs.
Oh, no doubt.
And you just sometimes you run into somebody that's truly better than you are, and I feel like that was probably the case on that particular night. And if I'm Westside, I probably want them to win the state title and say, yeah, well, we got nothing to the champ.
Yeah, so if you got to go down, you want to go down to the best, and it looks good that they moved on to the finals here, and if they go on and happen to capture the state crown, then hey, more power to them, and you got to tip your hat and go from there. So Ryan, as we put a bow on the end of football season here for the NEA Varsity Podcast, anything in particular that sticks out to you that looking back over the season that you want to draw a little more attention to before we wrap it up on football and move to full blown hoops?
Definitely give a shout out to the Blazers and what they did this year, going undefeated. We had the opportunity to cover them on the road twice, see a couple wins during the regular season, and even cover the playoff game that they hosted. Unfortunately, they didn't win it, but definitely they deserve credit in what they did this season. I like to throw out the fact that we went over to a new facility. I say a new facility, but a new place for us in Manila, and covered them and Mark Tree for our first time ever. So it was nice to go over there. Very welcoming place, as always, is Manila. We love doing basketball over there. But Jonesboro always willing to have us come in and wants us there. And we had some pretty solid games that we covered for them as well. But, if I'm naming a player of the year or something like that, hands down, it goes to the guy that you guys have covered all season in Logan McPherson. His numbers were unbelievable. I felt pretty strongly that he was going to have a good year. That's why he was on the cover of NEA Sports magazine, and didn't quite expect him to rush for 2,000 while missing a game and a half, over 2,000, I should say. But I think he exceeded the expectations that surely anybody would have had for him, just for the fact that he put up numbers that were just video game like. And we've said that many times. So, great year of football. Certainly want to send a shout out to the Osceola. Hope they win a state title this coming up here in the state championship game. Like to see Northeast Arkansas bring one home. Northeast Arkansas not always known for football, but have a chance there in 3A to win one. So good luck to the Seminoles. But overall, I think that's what I got, Marcus.
Yeah, I think I want to echo a little bit of what you said in regards to Logan McPherson. If I had to pick out one thing that stuck out to me over the year, it's definitely going to be his performance after coming back from an injury that sidelined him for, basically you might as well say 2 full games. He played in the Greene County Tech game, but it was still early on in that game. I think he had 9 carries on the game, which if you look at what he did after he come back, 9 carries is, probably 2 drives for him. If you break it down from the way he did, 2,279 yards on the year, averaged 8.3 yards per carry and 207 yards a game. I mean, that's just, as you said, that's video game numbers, and that's the best way to describe that. 24 rushing touchdowns as well. I don't have the Westside record book in front of me, but I would assume now, I think it's safe to say that every rushing record is going to be held by Logan McPherson. Attempts, yards on the year, average per carry, yards per game, and touchdowns in a season. I mean, 24 touchdowns in a season is just that's ridiculous. I mean, that's you've got. I don't know that Darren McFadden ever had 24 touchdowns in a season at Arkansas. He may have in high school, but I'm trying to look for something to compare it to, and 24 in a season is just ridiculous. There's no other way for me to describe it other than that word. And the fact that we got to be there and cover, 9 of the 10 games for Westside, it makes us look like we know what we're doing by deciding to follow the Westside Warriors for this season. And we had a great time with it, enjoyed it. We only had one piece of equipment go down over the year, and that was the game at Rivercrest. We had a little bit of equipment get just a little bit too wet and had to replace it. But that comes along with live TV and trying to do everything we do. And it's yeah, I'm glad we were there to see this historic run from Westside, and you factor in the junior high team winning conference as well, and the future is bright for football at Westside.
What you said, just a good season overall.
Yeah, no doubt. And then now, let's go ahead and switch gears, and we'll take all of our football gear and hang it in mothballs until the spring when spring football pops up, and let's talk hoops, Ryan. No rest for us. As we record this on Monday morning, Tuesday night, Tubetown jumps right into the hoops front. Westside travels over to Blytheville in one of the final games in the old Chickasaw Gymnasium there on the campus as they move into a new facility. Hopefully in early January is when they're planning to move into the new facility. But for the month of December and maybe the first week or so in January, we've got a few more games left in the old Chickasaw Gymnasium there, and in a way I kind of hate to see it go because it's a very unique facility and provides a really good home environment for Blytheville to play in. But times change and you upgrade, and they'll be moving into a small arena now there in Blytheville that will have all the latest amenities and bells and whistles and everything. So as you close down the vintage, you upgrade to the new and cutting edge, and Mackenzie Pierce has a really good team to play in that facility this year.
Yeah, I mean, first off, good for them that they're upgrading like many schools have done over the last 10 years or so. Sure. 10 years, and they deserve that. Mackenzie Pierce has really revitalized that program over there. There's a lot of talent. And always has been a lot of talent in Blytheville. And I think you're really going to see that show as he continues to settle in. I think he's been over there 4 or 5 years now. So they, in my opinion, they have the best team in that conference. And that comes from a guy that is a Blazer supporter and roots for you. And, I say that if they played 10 times, they would probably, split the 5 or win 6 of the 10 or something like that. Close. But I think that from the fact that they have the number of returning players coming back, Mackenzie Pierce, now I will say this, Mackenzie, he's always a positive guy. It's a rarity I ever hear him say anything negative. So, he's going to give an upbeat report, but he did say it's the best group of, I believe, 7 returning players he's ever had. So that says a lot because he's had a lot of talented players. But with that being said, it's exciting times for Blytheville, and it's cool that you guys get to cover that game tomorrow night.
Yeah, and you were talking about Pierce, always going to the positive side. He's almost I don't know if he's the exact opposite of Coach Whitmire, but if you've talked to Coach Whitmire probably as much as I have, and he kind of has that old school, Lou Holtz thing going on about him of, oh man, I just don't know if we're going to be able to, play with anybody, and he kind of sandbags a little bit on the talent that he does have, and Westside just won the Williams Baptist University Invitational over the weekend over a pretty tough field of competition there. It may have been smaller schools, but Hillcrest came into that tournament 12-0, was who they beat in the semifinals, and then I believe they squeaked out a win over Viola in the finals, 69-68. Yeah,
they Viola only lost by 10 to ICC, and everybody knows how good ICC is.
Right.
So they pulled 2 of those Hill schools in for that tournament, and it was a pretty nice field over there. So kudos to Westside for pulling one out. But I'll tell you, Marcus, they've got their hands full.
No doubt. Yeah.
But it's a game that I would, if I'm picking a team, I'm saying Blytheville, and probably, I would set that line at probably 8.5, 9, maybe somewhere in there. They're just very talented. And the thing about Westside, a lot of question marks with them. Number one, they lost the best player around in Avery Felkins last year. I love Riley Felkins. He is one of the best players in Northeast Arkansas. So it's his team now, and I'm interested to see how he how he responds to that. And but not just him, but the other guy, Kessler Mack, he's got to step up and become more of a better all-around player than just maybe a guy that sits out and shoots threes. And I'll tell you something, he shoots threes really, really well, but they're going to have a lot of more consistent scoring out of him on every night, and for them to be the team that they were.
Yeah, it's I kind of wondered coming into the start of the season, with Riley Felkins coming back and being at full strength for the first time in over a year, how he's going to respond, and then also, as you said, he's the guy now. He is your team, your team captain, your leader. He's accepted the role that Avery Feltz played in previous years of being the guy, and he comes out. One of the first games I see was a home game against Rivercrest, and he comes out and puts up 35. So, I mean, safe to say that he's back to full strength and playing like he did 2 years ago. Because, and until all of his, the health issues came to the forefront, nobody could really put their finger on what happened to him last year. But when you hear about his story and what he went through, I mean, good Lord, it's a wonder that the kid was walking and able to get up and down the floor, much less turn in some of the performances that he did. So glad he's got that behind him, and he's back to full strength now for his senior year. And it'll be interesting to see, as you said, how different of a role Kessler Mack plays this year. Because he's going to have to step up his game a little bit outside of his 3-point shooting, which is obviously his strong suit. But you need to see a little more from him on the defensive end, and maybe grab the key rebound when it's needed in a tight game. And you may have seen some of that. I didn't get a chance to go up to the Williams Baptist, and we may have seen some of that. But I just I saw the final score and saw that they'd won the tournament, and it's good for them to have some tight games like that early on, because that'll do nothing but benefit them down the road when they get in the conference play, and it could be as early as tomorrow night when they play Blytheville. I think this will be a tough game for Westside going into Blytheville, and this game, last year I think they played 3 times last year. And a little bit of a rivalry developed between these two teams last year, and the way some of the games went down, and it was kind of fun to watch and see a rivalry develop outside of your normal Brooklyn Westside, Valley View Westside with a new opponent here, and I think Pierce has a solid team. Blytheville always has athletes. They always have athletes in every sport, no matter what it is. But sometimes maybe they don't have they're not able to harness that talent in the right direction and get everybody working on the same page. And Pierce has done an amazing job of getting all these guys to buy into his system and realize that, not everybody's going to score 25 points every night, but there may be a night where it's your turn to score 25. And I think he's got those guys bought into that system. And that's why you saw them kind of catch fire at the end of last year. And, they come up in a benefit game earlier this year and beat Little Rock Parkview, which, I mean, if you follow high school basketball in the state of Arkansas at all, the name Parkview and the tradition there. So I think that was a big win for them, even if it was an exhibition game or charity game or whatever you want to call it. The fact that you can put that, in your memory bank that, hey, we got a W over Parkview, and that kind of set the tone for the season for them, I think, early on.
Yeah. I mean, you're right, especially playing the close games early, that'll benefit them. And you mentioned that about the rivalry. That's going to happen when you're at the top of the conference, and as other teams get to the top of the conference, you're going to run into those really close matchups and games. And, as well as I do, the way things work with all the invitational tournaments that are around. And, you look at like an NEA tournament or something, a lot of teams get in the same ones, and you just run into each other multiple times. And that just that just makes it all the more interesting. So, it's fun to keep up with, and y'all got a good one to open up with on Tuesday.
Yeah, and Ryan, you guys get a little bit of extra time off because the game that you guys had on your schedule for this week to be your first game got postponed because Osceola is still playing football.
Yeah, so good for them. We've mentioned that earlier in this broadcast, but yeah, I mean, and regardless, had Osceola made it, I think they were going to go ahead and move the game anyways, for the simple fact that Coach Wilson over at Osceola would only had just 2 or 3 days to prep for that game at full team. So they've moved that to January 20th. I believe that's on a Monday night. We have full plans to be there to cover that. So that moves our season premiere for basketball 11 days from now on December the 20th. And that'll be at Lake City, and it will be BIC Riverside. And you can't get any bigger of a rivalry than that one right there. And we'll talk more about that one in our next broadcast. Don't want to talk too much about it on it right now, but very excited about it. It's the second year in a row we've covered that game before Christmas break, and then we come back from Christmas break and have a slew of ball games. So, but we'll hit more on that next time. But definitely will be watching you guys tomorrow night.
Yeah, and then you mentioned Christmas break there a couple times. The tradition in Northeast Arkansas over Christmas break has to be the NEA Tournament, and we're coming up on the 73rd annual NEA Tournament, starting on the 19th, which is a Thursday night, the 19th, 20th, and 21st and 23rd, and then take a little Christmas break and come back and finish it up the 27th, the 30th, and the 31st. I mean, Ryan, we've talked about the NEA in the past, and it's as I said, it's a tradition in Northeast Arkansas, and there's just so many historical moments from that tournament, just in mine in your lifetime. I mean, forget about the fact of before that. I mean, if you just look over let's say the past 30 years of some of the players who have come through there and some of the great matchups you've had, and the viral moments from Victor Duke's dunk to both of the Reeve boys just putting on circus style performances at the NEA. I mean, it's always a fun time out there.
Well, especially and help me here on the younger Reeves.
Austin, thank you. I was drawing a blank. I could see his face. Yeah, he's still putting up big performances for Oklahoma now too.
He definitely is a Razorback fan. I'll say again, we missed out on that one.
No doubt.
That's here and there and gone. So, but yeah, I mean, those are some of my favorite basketball memories are at the NEA tournament. I think back to when Brooks Taylor was playing out there, and my home school, Riverside. Of course, we rarely, if ever, beat them when he was there, but we got one on them in the semis to go to the finals, and went into I can't remember how many overtimes that went into. It was just a great ball game. It was a crowd that they rarely have out there at the First National Bank Arena, but it was jam packed. And then Austin brought so many fans out there. And I tell you, the best memory, and you talk about things going viral, of most recent is Riverside Girls and Bay finals, and that game ending 0.7 seconds. Mallory Hartley is on the other end of the floor. They're down, I guess it was by 1, and Riverside thinks they've got it 1. I mean, they think they've got the NEA tournament. And she chunks the ball. Sarah Blackman gets it, throws it up for a quick layup, and they win it all. And it just that video is still on my phone. And I'd have to look. I'm amazed at every year when it pops up on Facebook how many views and shares that got. And I just happened to, I'll record this. I did not think anything like that would happen. So it's a fun place to be at. It's just a part of, for me, it's a part of Christmas and the holidays. And, and it really, lets you know that it is truly basketball season at that point when the tournament's around. One thing I was going to say, and I was talking to somebody about the other day, they broke that up into 3 divisions. I like how that's done. I like how that upper division has the better team. It's not broken up necessarily by classification. It's by how good you are, and I love that. I mean, that boys division and the 3rd division, there's not a bad team in it, and unfortunately, you're going to see some good teams lose and be knocked out of having a chance to win very early on. With that being said, probably the downside of that is that I look at the Division I in boys or girls, and aside from a couple teams, I like Ridgefield in it. I don't know a lot about Salem. They're the 2 seed. Beyond that, man, there's going to be some. I just won't lie. The competition is not very good. But with that being said, it gives one of those smaller schools an opportunity to go deep into a very well thought of tournament and to get a trophy out of it. So, there's pros and cons to both. What I do like about it, it's competitive. You're not going to see the 50-point blowouts that sometimes you see when they just base off the classification. So I do like that about it, and I think it is a far better setup. And if you like just watching good competitive basketball, then this is the route they win and they need to stick with.
Yeah, and it's going to create for some unique matchups that normally you might not get to see. So I love the way that the committee has decided to make some changes and kind of adapt with the times a little bit and try to keep it fresh and relevant. I mean, this is we're talking about 73 years of the same tournament. I mean, obviously it's the longest tournament in the state, and I mean it's got to be close to being the longest consistently running tournament on a national level too. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's one out there that has probably run as long, if not longer, but I mean, 73 years and the tournament keeps going. And I mean, it's just that's amazing to me right there. And you got to figure in another couple of years when they have that 75th anniversary that they'll really blow it out and make it a bigger deal than what it already is, because it'll be the 75th anniversary. I mean, it's just amazing to me to think about as many high school tournaments as come and go. I mean, for the longest time, I remember growing up as a kid, one of the tournaments I always heard about was, the King Cotton Classic down at Pine Bluff. Well, as nationally relevant as that tournament was, it fell on hard times and went away, and now it's come back, and that's great. But it did have a big gap there. And for the fact of the NEA to stand the test of time and not have, when it falls on hard times, they have found a way to pursue new sponsors and power through it and keep it rolling. And here we are 73 years in. I mean, that is, you got to tip your hat to everyone who plays a role in making sure this tournament stays going.
Yeah, that's for sure. And, I do hope they blow it up. And really, the only way to keep making it better is to continue to pull more of teams into the tournament. Both the Paragould schools aren't in it. It's been a long time, I feel like, since I remember them being in it. I feel like, that they need to find some way to get them back in. But for them and Jonesboro, I get them not being in it. Mm-hmm. I'd prefer them not to be, because most of the time they would just win it, and they're so much bigger than everybody else. Right. So I'm good with that, and I understand Coach Swift's reasoning for going elsewhere and doing what he does. But like I said, I just want to see it grow and continue to get better and better. And it's on the committee to make that 75th anniversary as big as possible. They got a couple of years to figure that out.
Sure.
So, we'll let them worry about that.
Yeah, but knowing who's on the committee and the way they operate, I'm sure that discussion has already taken place, and the wheels are starting to turn on how to make the 74th and the 75th, just a little bigger and a little better every single year. So, man, we're going to have a lot of hoops between now and Christmas, so it's going to be a fun time to get out and watch a few games in addition to the ones that we're going to broadcast, and the same thing for you guys. You guys have a great schedule as well, but I'm sure just like I'm going to, you'll find yourself out at the First National Bank Arena just to sit back and watch a few games here and there.
No doubt about that. That's a conversation that my wife and kid have already talked about, that we didn't really get out there much last year, but we're going to be there this year. Matter of fact, we went out there and made an appearance for the last half of the Division III boys game, and that's all I saw last year.
Oh, wow.
Just worked out that way.
Yeah.
But this year, we'll definitely going to be out there more often, and I just look forward to it.
Looking forward to it. I know you are, and I am as well. And, looking forward to us getting going on basketball tomorrow night. And then you guys, what'd you say you have, like 11 days before your first basketball broadcast?
Today's the 9th. We premiere on the 20th.
There you go. So let's get all the cameras clean and the batteries charged and get ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and put a bow on this episode of NEA Varsity Podcast, and we'll do it again next week. Ryan, appreciate you coming on again, man. And like I said, we're in full blown hoops mode now, and it's all basketball from here forward. And before you know it, we'll be talking district tournaments.
That's right.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. For Ryan Fletcher, I'm Marcus Carlton, and you've been listening to the NEA Varsity Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the NEA Varsity Podcast, a production of Ritter Communications, brought to you by Tubetown and NEA Sports. Be sure you're subscribed to the NEA Varsity Podcast to get the latest episodes. Tubetown is a community partnership of Ritter Communications.